I was folding laundry when a stranger called me and said, "I think we need to talk about David, my husband's name." Coming from a woman I'd never heard of, my hands froze mid-fold, gripping one of David's work shirts. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice steady even though my heart had started hammering in my chest. "My name is Rebecca," she said. There was a pause, a heavy, loaded silence. "I'm David's wife." The world didn't just stop. It tilted. The laundry basket slipped from my lap and hit the floor. Clothes scattered everywhere. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The words echoed in my head like they were spoken in a foreign language. "That's impossible," I whispered. "I'm David's wife. We've been married for 20 years. Another pause. Then her voice came back, quieter now, almost broken. "So have we." My name is Sarah. I'm 43 years old, and on that ordinary Tuesday afternoon in March, I discovered that my entire marriage was a lie. My husband, the man who kissed me goodbye every morning, who held my hand during movies, who promised me forever, had been living a double life for 2 decades, and I had no idea. Let me take you back to the beginning. Not the beginning of the lie, I didn't know about that yet, but the beginning of what I thought was my love story. I met David 22 years ago at a coffee shop in Boston. I was 23, working my first real job at a marketing firm, running on caffeine and ambition. He was 25, confident without being arrogant, funny without trying too hard. He had this way of looking at you like you were the only person in the room. We talked for 3 hours that day, about everything, about nothing. When he asked for my number, I didn't hesitate. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. It was romantic, thoughtful. He took me back to that same coffee shop where we met, got down on one knee right there in front of everyone. I said yes before he even finished asking. The wedding was small, but perfect. My parents walked me down the aisle. My best friend Emily was my maid of honor. David's side was quieter. His parents didn't come. He said they were elderly, lived in California, didn't travel well anymore. His best man was a college friend who I'd only met once or twice. I didn't think anything of it. People have complicated family situations. I understood that. We bought our first house when I was 28, a beautiful 3-bedroom colonial with a wraparound porch and a backyard perfect for summer barbecues. I planted roses along the fence. David built a deck. We hosted friends for dinner parties. We were building a life. We tried for children. For years, we tried, but it never happened. After countless doctor appointments and too many negative pregnancy tests, we made peace with it. It was just going to be the two of us, and that was okay. We had each other, we had our home, we had our plans for the future. Or so I thought. The phone call from Rebecca came out of nowhere. One minute I was living my normal life. The next minute, everything I thought I knew was crumbling around me. After that initial shocking conversation, Rebecca asked if she could come over. She needed to see me in person. She needed proof that I was real, that David had actually done what she suspected. I said yes. What else could I say? An hour later, she was standing on my doorstep. I opened the door, and we just stared at each other for a moment. Two women whose lives had been twisted together by the same man's lies. She looked tired, scared, angry. I probably looked the same. "Come in," I said quietly. She stepped inside, looking around at our foyer like she was cataloging evidence. And I guess she was. Evidence that her husband had another life, another home, another wife. We sat in the living room, the same living room where David and I had spent countless evenings watching movies, talking about our days, planning our weekends. Now it felt contaminated by the truth. "How long have you known?" I asked her. "Since yesterday," Rebecca said. "I was looking for our tax returns, found a folder in David's office. A folder with your name on it. Tax returns filed jointly with you. Same social security number as his. Different address." "And you came straight here?" I said. She nodded. "I had to know. I had to see if you were real." "I'm real, and so is this nightmare. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I have pictures. Do you want to see them? Part of me didn't want to see, didn't want to make it more real than it already was, but I needed to know. I needed to see the life David had hidden from me. She showed me wedding photos first. David, in a tuxedo, looking at Rebecca the same way he looked at me on our wedding day, like she was his whole world, like she was the only woman he'd ever love. The date on the photos was August 12th, 2007, 4 years after he'd married me. We have 2 daughters, Rebecca said quietly, swiping to another photo. 2 girls stared back at me from the screen. One teenager, one younger, both beautiful, both clearly David's children. Melissa is 16. Emma is 13, Rebecca continued, her voice breaking. He coaches Emma's soccer team. He helped Melissa study for her driver's permit last month. He's their dad. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. David had children, 2 daughters. While I'd been going to fertility doctors, taking hormones that made me sick, crying every month when the tests came back negative, he'd been raising a family with someone else. Did you know about me? I finally managed to ask. No, Rebecca said firmly. I had no idea. He told me he'd been married before, briefly in his early 20s, that it didn't work out. I never suspected he was still married, still living with someone else. From upstairs, I heard the shower turn off. David was home. He'd been upstairs this whole time, completely unaware that his 2 worlds were about to collide. He's here, Rebecca whispered, her eyes wide. Of course he's here, I said, my voice cold. He lives here. This is our house. He has a house with me too, Rebecca said, in Newton, 20 minutes away. 20 minutes. For 17 years, his other family had been 20 minutes away, and I'd never known. Sarah? Who's at the door? David's voice called down from upstairs. Rebecca and I looked at each other. In that moment, something passed between us, an understanding. We were both about to watch the same man's world collapse. Why don't you come inside? I said to Rebecca. Let's wait for him together. She nodded. We sat on the couch, side by side, 2 wives, waiting. I heard David's footsteps on the stairs. Sarah? Was someone at the door? I thought I heard voices. He walked into the living room in his pajama pants and t-shirt, hair still damp from the shower, and stopped dead. The color drained from his face. Actually drained, like someone had pulled a plug. He looked at Rebecca, then at me, then back at Rebecca. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Hello, David, Rebecca said, her voice shaking with barely controlled rage. Hi, honey, I added, my tone matching hers. Looks like you have some explaining to do. He stood frozen in the doorway. I watched him try to think, watched his brain scrambling for an explanation, an excuse, a way out. But there was no way out, not from this. How long have you known? He finally whispered, looking at Rebecca. I found out yesterday, she said. I was looking for our tax returns and found a folder in your office. A folder with another set of tax returns, with her name on them. She pointed at me. David's eyes closed. He swayed slightly, like he might pass out. 20 years, I said, my voice breaking despite my efforts to stay calm. You've been lying to me for 20 years, and to her for 17? Sarah, I can explain, he started. Can you? I cut him off. Can you actually explain how you managed to have 2 complete, separate lives? 2 houses, 2 wives, 2 daughters I knew nothing about? You have kids? He whispered, still looking at Rebecca like he couldn't believe she was really there. Yes, David. Our daughters. Remember them? Melissa and Emma? The girls you tucked into bed 3 nights ago before you left for your business trip? His face crumbled. He sank down onto the chair across from us, his head in his hands. How? I demanded. Just tell me how. How did you do this? He looked up at me with red eyes. And for the first time in 20 years of marriage, I saw my husband clearly. I saw the liar, the manipulator, the stranger. I never meant for it to go this far.
he said quietly. Rebecca let out a harsh laugh. 17 years, David. You meant for it to go this far. And that's when I realized this was just the beginning. The tip of an iceberg I didn't even know existed. Because if he'd been lying about this, what else had been a lie? Everything, a voice in my head whispered. Everything was a lie. David sat in that chair looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. The man I'd shared a bed with for 2 decades, the man I'd trusted with every piece of my heart, he looked defeated, broken. Good, I thought. Let him break. Start talking, Rebecca said, her voice like steel, and don't you dare leave anything out. He took a shaky breath. It started before I met either of you. I was working 2 territories for the pharmaceutical company, Boston and Providence. I was young, ambitious, trying to build my career. The company wanted me to cover both regions, so I was constantly traveling between them. And I prompted when he paused. And I met Sarah in Boston at that coffee shop. It was real. Everything between us was real. I fell in love with you, he said, finally looking at me. I proposed. We got married. We bought this house. But, Rebecca said coldly, but the company restructured. They wanted me to promote me, but it meant spending more time in Providence. I was there 3, sometimes 4 days a week. And I was lonely. I was stupid and selfish and lonely.
Don't you dare make excuses, I spat. He flinched. I'm not. I'm just telling you what happened. I met Rebecca at a hospital in Providence. She was a nurse. We started talking, then having lunch together. Then you started an affair, Rebecca finished flatly. Yes. His voice was barely a whisper. While you were married to me, I added, just to make sure that part was crystal clear. Yes. The room was silent except for the sound of the clock ticking on the mantel, the same clock we'd received as a wedding gift from my parents. Every tick felt like a hammer hitting my chest. When did you marry her? I asked. 2007, August. We'd been married for 4 years by then, I said, doing the math out loud. 4 years, David. We were trying to have a baby. Do you remember that? I was going to fertility doctors, taking hormones that made me sick, crying every month when the tests came back negative. And you were starting a second family, Rebecca said bitterly, getting me pregnant while you were pretending to try with her. David's head dropped into his hands again. I know how terrible this is. Terrible? I stood up, rage coursing through me. Terrible doesn't even begin to cover this. This is sociopathic. This is evil. How did you manage it? Rebecca asked, and I could hear the genuine curiosity beneath her anger. How did you keep this going for almost 2 decades? He looked up, his face blotchy with tears. The job helped. I was supposed to be traveling all the time anyway. When I was with Sarah, I told her I was going to Providence for work. When I was with you, he looked at Rebecca, I told you I was going to Boston for work. The company thought I was working from home part of the time, which gave me flexibility. 2 phones, I said suddenly, remembering. You always had 2 phones. You said one was for work. Yes. 2 cars, Rebecca added. You kept one at each house. Yes. 2 complete lives, I said, my voice hollow. 2 sets of friends, 2 families. How did you remember it all? How did you keep the lies straight? He shook his head. I don't know. I compartmentalized. When I was with you, Sarah, I was that version of myself. The husband with no kids. The guy who went to work every day and came home to a quiet house. When I was with Rebecca, I was dad. I was the guy who coached soccer and helped with homework. What about holidays? Christmas, Thanksgiving? Our anniversary was last weekend. Where did Rebecca think you were? Business conference in Chicago. Same story every year around this time. She looked at him with disgust. You missed Melissa's 16th birthday last month. You said you had an important client meeting. I was here, I said, quietly. We went to dinner to celebrate our anniversary. Rebecca's hands clenched into fists. He missed Emma's science fair in March, said he had to fly to Seattle for a presentation. We went to my sister's wedding, I said.
the pieces clicking into place. In Vermont, that whole weekend, David was crying now, silent tears streaming down his face. I felt nothing watching him cry. No sympathy, no pity, nothing but cold, burning rage. "The money," I said suddenly. "How did you afford 2 households?" "I made good money, 6 figures. I split it between 2 accounts, filed separate tax returns for each identity. Basically, I told Sarah that I was conservative with spending so we could save for retirement. I told Rebecca that her nursing salary helped cover most of the bills." "So you stole from both of us," Rebecca said. "Made us both think we were being responsible while you were funding your double life. I never thought of it as stealing." "Of course you didn't," I cut him off. "Because that would require you to think of us as real people, instead of just props in your fantasy life." He didn't answer. "Did you love either of us? Or was this all just a game to you?" "I loved you both," he said, and the earnestness in his voice made me want to scream. That was the problem. I couldn't choose. I couldn't give either of you up. "So you just decided to keep us both, like we were objects you owned, not people with our own lives and choices and right to know the truth." "What about your parents?" Rebecca asked. "Where did Sarah think they lived all these years?" David wiped his face. "I told Sarah they lived in California, that they were elderly and didn't travel. I sent cards and presents at Christmas, supposedly from them. I faked phone calls." "They're actually dead," Rebecca said to me. "Both of them. They died before we got married." "So when I asked to meet them," I started. I made excuses. Their health, the distance. COVID helped with that for a while. There was always a reason why it couldn't happen. I thought about all the times I'd suggested we visit his parents, all the times he'd changed the subject or said maybe next year, all the times I'd felt guilty for not trying harder to connect with his family. "My parents met you," I said slowly. "My sister, my friends, they all know you. They all think you're my husband." "His parents met me too," Rebecca said, "or I thought they did. Who were those people, David?" "Actors," he admitted. "I hired actors for the wedding. I paid them to send birthday cards and call once in a while." The level of planning, the depth of deception, it was staggering. "Did anyone know?" I asked. "Did anyone help you with this?" "No, no one knew. I couldn't risk anyone finding out." "Your best man at our wedding, I remember. Tom. Did he know?" "There was no Tom. Another actor." "Unbelievable," Rebecca breathed. "You thought of everything." "Not everything," I said, looking at Rebecca. "He didn't plan for us finding each other." "No," David said quietly. "I didn't plan for that." We sat in silence for a moment. David was still crying quietly in his chair, but neither of us looked at him. We were looking at each other. 2 women who'd been betrayed by the same man in the same horrible way. "What do we do now?" Rebecca finally asked. I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who just realized they had absolutely nothing left to lose. "Now?" I said. "Now we make him pay." Rebecca looked at me with surprise. "What do you mean?" "I mean, he destroyed our lives," I said, my voice steady, despite the rage burning in my chest. "He lied to us for years. He stole our time, our trust, our ability to make informed choices about our own lives. He made fools of both of us." "He did," Rebecca agreed quietly. "So we don't just walk away. We don't make this easy for him." I looked at David, who had lifted his head to stare at me with fear in his eyes. "Good. Let him be afraid. We make sure he understands exactly what he's done. We make sure there are consequences." "Sarah, please." "Don't," I snapped. "You don't get to Sarah, please me. You lost that right the moment you decided to marry someone else while you were still married to me." "It's bigamy, what he did. It's actually illegal." David's face went even paler. "Rebecca, you don't have to—" "Don't I?" She shot back. "Give me one good reason why I shouldn't call the police right now and have you arrested." He opened his mouth, then closed it. There was no good reason. We all knew it.
"Before we do anything," I said, "I want answers. Real answers. I want to know everything." Rebecca nodded. I want the timeline, every detail. David looked between us, realizing he had no choice. We held all the cards now. Fine, he said quietly. What do you want to know? Start from the beginning, I said. The real beginning. When you met Rebecca. He took a shaky breath. It was 2006, January. I was visiting a hospital in Providence for a pharmaceutical presentation. Rebecca was one of the nurses in the meeting. We started talking after the presentation. Rebecca continued, her voice flat. He asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I said yes. Were you already planning to cheat on me? I asked David. Or did it just happen? It just happened, he said. I wasn't looking for an affair. But Rebecca was so easy to talk to, so kind, and I was spending so much time in Providence, feeling disconnected from my life in Boston. So you decided to start a new life instead of fixing your existing one? I said. He nodded miserably. We started dating. It was casual at first, just lunch here and there, then dinners, then we fell in love, Rebecca finished bitterly. At least I thought we did. I had no idea he was married. When did you propose to her? I asked. 2007, June, 6 months before the wedding. And you were married to me the entire time? I said, living in this house, sleeping in our bed, pretending everything was fine? Yes. Did you feel guilty? Rebecca asked. Even a little bit? Every day, David said, and I actually believed him. But I couldn't stop. I couldn't give either of you up, so I convinced myself I could make it work, that I could keep both lives separate. How did you get a marriage license? I asked. Don't they check if you're already married? Different states. I married Sarah in Massachusetts. I married Rebecca in Rhode Island. The systems didn't talk to each other back then. It's easier now to check, but in 2007, it just fell through the cracks. So you committed fraud. Multiple counts. Marriage fraud, tax fraud, insurance fraud if you claimed both of us on your health insurance. I did, he admitted. I told each company I was divorced, that I had split custody arrangements that required flexible coverage. The depth of the lies was astounding. Every single aspect of his life had been carefully crafted deception. When did you have your first daughter? I asked Rebecca. Melissa was born in 2008, November. I did the math. That was 5 years into our marriage. I was still going to fertility doctors, still trying, still hoping. I didn't know, Rebecca said softly. I swear I didn't know any of this. He told me he'd been married before briefly in his early 20s, that it didn't work out, that he'd learned from it and was ready to be a real husband and father. And I believed him, she continued, her voice breaking. When Melissa was born, he was there. He was at every doctor's appointment. He held my hand in the delivery room. He cried when he held her for the first time. Where did I think you were? I asked David. Conference in Miami, 4-day pharmaceutical summit. You missed the birth of your first child to attend a fake conference? No, he said quietly. I was there for the birth. I flew back to Boston the next day and pretended I'd been in Miami the whole time. And when Emma was born, I pressed, 2011, April. I remember that, I said, my voice hollow. You told me I had to go to San Francisco for a week. Emergency client situation. I was in Providence with Rebecca and Melissa and our newborn daughter. Rebecca was crying now too, silent tears streaming down her face. He took a week of paternity leave from work. We thought we were so lucky. So many dads can't take time off. While I was home alone, thinking my husband was working, thinking we were a team building our future together. How did you handle birthdays, holidays, all the family events? I rotated. Christmas morning with one family, Christmas evening with the other. I'd say I had to work or visit my sick parents or attend a colleague's wedding. Birthdays were easier. I just make sure I was in the right place on the right day. Our anniversary, last weekend, you took me to that expensive restaurant, gave me a beautiful bracelet, told me I was the love of my life. That's what he always says. Every anniversary, every birthday, you're the love of my life, Rebecca. We looked at each other, both of us hearing the same words,
both of us believing them, both of us complete fools. Did you ever get confused? I asked David. Did you ever slip up and call me Rebecca? Call her Sarah? A few times, he admitted, but I covered it quickly. Said I was thinking about work, about a client. You just both accepted it. Because we trusted him. Because we had no reason not to. What about social media? Rebecca asked. How did you manage that? I wasn't on social media. I told Sarah it was for privacy reasons. I told Rebecca the same thing. No Facebook, no Instagram, no Twitter. It was easier that way. No digital footprint, I said. No way for your two worlds to accidentally collide online. Right. Smart, Rebecca said coldly. You thought of everything. Not everything, I reminded her. You didn't think you'd go looking through his files. That was my mistake. Your mistake? I repeated incredulously. Your mistake was getting caught? Not the lying, the cheating, the fraud, the destruction of two families? Just the getting caught part? He didn't answer. I stood up, pacing the room. My mind was racing, trying to process everything. 20 years. 20 years of my life based on a complete lie. 20 years of memories that were now tainted. Every happy moment, every laugh, every intimate conversation, all of it was happening while he was living a whole other life with someone else. I want to see them, I said. Who? David asked. Your daughters, Melissa and Emma. I want to see pictures of them. Rebecca pulled out her phone without hesitation. She scrolled through her photos and handed it to me. I looked at the screen. Two beautiful girls stared back at me. One was a teenager with David's eyes and Rebecca's dark hair. The other younger one had David's smile. They were sitting on a couch, different from ours, both of them laughing at something off camera. These were David's children, the children he had while pretending to try to have children with me. They're beautiful, I said, my voice cracking. I handed the phone back to Rebecca. They are, she agreed, and they're going to be devastated when they find out their father isn't who they thought he was. When do we tell them? I asked. We? David looked up sharply. Yes, we, Rebecca said firmly. You think you get to control this narrative? You think you get to decide how and when people find out what you did? They're my daughters. They're my daughters, Rebecca interrupted. I raised them. I was there for every scraped knee, every bad dream, every first day of school. You were just the dad who showed up part-time.
That's not fair. Nothing about this is fair, she shouted, standing up. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that Sarah spent years trying to get pregnant while you were raising kids with me? Is it fair that my daughters have a father who's been lying to them their entire lives? Is it fair that both of us wasted years of our lives on you? The room fell silent. Rebecca was breathing hard, her chest heaving with emotion. David looked like he wanted to disappear into the chair. We tell them together, I said quietly. Your daughters deserve to hear the truth from all of us. Rebecca looked at me. You'd do that? Face my kids and tell them their dad is a fraud? I would, I said, because they deserve the truth, and because this isn't about us anymore. It's about making sure everyone hurt by his lies gets to know what really happened. She nodded slowly. Okay, I repeated. Then I looked at David. Tomorrow, you're going to take us to your other house, the one I've never seen, the one you share with Rebecca, and we're going to sit down with Melissa and Emma, and we're going to tell them everything. Sarah, they're just kids. They're 16 and 13, old enough to know the truth, old enough to deserve the truth. After that, Rebecca added, we're calling a lawyer, both of us, and we're figuring out how to untangle this mess legally. And then, I continued, we're going to make sure everyone knows what you did. Your employer, our friends, our families, everyone. David's face crumbled. Please, don't. You'll ruin my life. I laughed, actually laughed. The sound was harsh and bitter in the quiet room.
You already ruined your life, David. You ruined it the moment you decided to build it on lies. We're just making sure people know the truth about who you really are." He put his hands in his head and sobbed. I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, just cold, clear determination. Rebecca stood up. "I should go. I need to get home before the girls start wondering where I am. What did you tell them about tonight?" "I told them I had to run some errands, that I'd be back before bedtime." "Tell them to be ready tomorrow afternoon. Tell them their dad is coming over and we need to have a family meeting." Rebecca nodded. She looked at me for a long moment, then surprised me by pulling me into a hug. "I'm sorry this happened to you." "I'm sorry it happened to both of us," I whispered back. We pulled apart. She looked at David one more time, her face full of disgust, then walked out of the house. I heard the front door close. Then it was just me and David in the living room, the man I'd married 20 years ago, the stranger sitting in my chair. "You're sleeping in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow we deal with this. All of it." "Sarah, don't," I cut him off. "Don't say my name. Don't apologize. Don't make excuses. Just don't." I walked out of the room and up the stairs to our bedroom, to what used to be our bedroom. Now it was just a room where I'd slept next to a liar for 20 years. I closed the door, locked it, and sat on the edge of the bed. Then, finally, I let myself cry. I didn't sleep. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rebecca's face. I saw those pictures of the daughters David had with her. I saw 20 years of my life crumbling into dust. I stayed in the bedroom with the door locked all night. Around 3 in the morning, David tried the handle. "Sarah, can we talk?" "No," I said through the door. "Please, I just want to explain." "There's nothing to explain. Go away." He stood there for another minute, then I heard his footsteps retreating down the hall. When the sun finally came up, I was still sitting on the edge of the bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes. I felt hollow, empty, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left just a shell. But beneath the emptiness, there was something else, something hard and cold and focused. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, the cold, calculating kind. The kind that makes you think clearly, the kind that makes you plan. I got up, took a shower, got dressed. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. My eyes were red and puffy from crying. My face was pale. I looked like I'd aged 10 years overnight. Maybe I had. I heard movement downstairs. David was awake. I took a deep breath, unlocked the bedroom door, and went down to face him. He was in the kitchen making coffee. He turned when he heard me, his face hopeful. "Sarah, good morning. I made your favorite." "Don't," I said flatly. "Don't pretend this is a normal morning. Don't pretend you can just make me coffee and everything will be okay." His face fell. "I know. I'm sorry. I just don't know what else to do." "You could start by being honest," I said, sitting down at the kitchen table. "For once in your miserable life, you could try being honest." He poured 2 cups of coffee and brought them to the table. He sat across from me, his hands wrapped around his mug like he needed the warmth. "What do you want to know?" he asked quietly. "Everything. But specifically, I want to know if there are any other secrets, any other lies, any other families I should know about." "No," he said quickly. "Just you and Rebecca, I swear. Your word means nothing to me, but I'll take it for now because I don't have any other choice." We sat in silence for a moment. The kitchen looked the same as it always had. The same blue curtains I'd picked out 5 years ago. The same farmhouse table we'd bought together at an antique store. The same coffee maker David had given me for Christmas 2 years ago. Everything looked normal, but nothing would ever be normal again. "What time are we going to Rebecca's?" She texted me this morning, said 2 o'clock. The girls will be home from school by then. "What are you going to tell them?" "The truth. What else can I tell them? You could lie, I said bitterly. You're good at that. He flinched, but didn't argue. I deserve that. You deserve a lot worse than that.
We drank our coffee in silence. I was trying to figure out what I was feeling. Hurt, definitely. Betrayed, obviously. But there was something else too. Something I didn't expect. Relief. I was relieved it was over. Relieved I didn't have to live in the lie anymore, even though I hadn't known I was living in one. Relieved that I could finally see clearly. "Did you ever love me?" I asked suddenly. David looked up, surprised by the question. "Yes, of course I did. I do. But you also loved Rebecca." "Yes. So your love doesn't mean anything," I said. "If you can love two people at the same time while lying to both of them, then your love is worthless." "That's not true." "It is true," I interrupted. "Love isn't just a feeling, David. It's actions. It's choices. It's putting someone else's well-being above your own wants. You didn't do any of that. You just took what you wanted from both of us and called it love." He didn't have an answer for that. "I talked to a lawyer this morning," I said. His head snapped up. "What?" "I called a divorce attorney at 6 a.m. Emergency consultation. I explained the situation. He's drawing up papers." "Sarah, don't you think we should talk about this? Try to work through it?" I stared at him in disbelief. "Work through it? You think there's a way to work through this? Couples survive affairs all the time." "This wasn't an affair," I shouted, slamming my coffee mug down on the table. "An affair is a mistake, a moment of weakness. This was 17 years of calculated deception. This was a second marriage, a second family. This was a complete alternate life you built while pretending to build a life with me." "I know." "You don't know." I stood up, too angry to sit still. "You have no idea what you've done. You've stolen 20 years from me. 20 years I can never get back. 20 years I could have spent with someone who actually loved me. Someone who was actually capable of honesty and loyalty. I did love you." "Stop saying that." My voice broke. "Just stop. Because if this is what your love looks like, I don't want it. I never wanted it." David was crying now. Big, messy, ugly tears. "What do you want me to do? Tell me what to do and I'll do it." "I want you to have never done this," I said, my own tears starting again. "I want to go back 20 years and walk past you in that coffee shop. I want to have met someone else, someone real, someone honest. I want a completely different life than the one you gave me. I can't change the past. No, you can't. So instead, you're going to help me destroy your present. You're going to cooperate with everything Rebecca and I want to do. You're going to tell the truth to everyone. You're going to face the consequences. And you're going to do it without fighting us. And if I don't?" I smiled coldly. "Then Rebecca goes to the police and has you arrested for bigamy. Then we both sue you for fraud. Then we make sure your employer knows exactly what you've been doing. Then we tell everyone, every friend, every colleague, every person who's ever met you what kind of man you really are. You'd ruin me." "You already ruined yourself," I said. "We'd just be making it public." He slumped in his chair, defeated. "Fine, I'll cooperate." "Good." I checked my watch. "We need to leave for Rebecca's house in 3 hours. I suggest you spend that time figuring out how you're going to explain this to your daughters." I turned to leave the kitchen. "Sarah." I stopped but didn't turn around. "I really am sorry. For whatever it's worth, I'm truly, deeply sorry." I looked back at him over my shoulder. "It's not worth anything. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give me back my life. Sorry is just a word that makes you feel better about the terrible things you've done." I walked out of the kitchen and went upstairs to pack a bag, because I knew that after today,
After we told Melissa and Emma the truth, I wasn't coming back to this house. This house that had been a lie. This house that had never really been a home. I was going to stay with my sister. I was going to file for divorce. I was going to figure out how to rebuild a life from the ashes of the one David had burned down. But first, I had to go meet the family I never knew existed. The daughters who were about to learn their father was a fraud. The girls who were about to have their world shattered just like mine had been shattered. I felt guilty about that. It wasn't their fault their father was a liar. They were innocent victims in all of this. But they deserved the truth. And I was going to make sure they got it. At 1:30, David and I got in the car. We didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. He drove us to Newton, to a quiet residential neighborhood with big trees and nice lawns, to a 4-bedroom colonial with a swing set in the backyard, just like Rebecca had said, to the house where my husband lived another life for 17 years. Rebecca was waiting on the porch when we pulled up. She looked as exhausted as I felt. Dark circles under her eyes, shoulders slumped with the weight of everything she was carrying. We got out of the car and walked up the driveway together. 3 people who were about to break 2 young girls' hearts. "They're in the living room," Rebecca said quietly. "I told them their dad was coming over for a family meeting. They think it's about college planning for Melissa." "Are you ready for this?" I asked her. She shook her head. "No, but we have to do it anyway." I nodded. "Let's go." We walked inside together, David trailing behind us like a condemned man walking to his execution, and in a way, I guess he was. The living room was warm and comfortable. Family photos covered the walls, Rebecca with the girls, David with the girls, all 4 of them together at various ages and places. Beach vacations, Christmas mornings, birthday parties, a whole life documented in pictures, a life I'd never known existed. 2 girls sat on the couch. The older one, Melissa, was tall and slender with long dark hair. She had Rebecca's features but David's eyes. The younger one, Emma, was smaller with lighter hair and David's dimples when she smiled. They both looked up when we walked in. Melissa's face brightened when she saw David. "Dad, Mom said you were coming over. Are we finally going to look at colleges?" Emma jumped up and ran to David, hugging him around the waist. "Dad, I thought you weren't coming back until Friday." David hugged her back, and I saw his whole body trembling. "Hi, sweetheart." "Hi, Melissa." Then Melissa noticed me standing in the doorway. Her face faded into confusion. "Who's that?" Rebecca took a deep breath. "Girls, sit down. We need to talk to you about something important." Emma pulled away from David, looking worried now. "What's wrong? Is someone sick?" "No one's sick, but we do have something very serious to discuss. Please sit down." The girls sat back on the couch, pressed close together. They could sense something was wrong. Kids always can. I stood awkwardly by the door, unsure where I fit in this scene. Rebecca gestured to a chair across from the couch. I sat. David sat next to me, but not too close. Rebecca stood, like she needed to be able to move, to pace. "Girls," she started, then stopped, cleared her throat, started again. "Your dad has something he needs to tell you, something that's going to be very difficult to hear." "Dad?" Melissa looked at David with concern. "What's going on?" David opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out.
"David," Rebecca said sharply, "tell them." He took a shaky breath. "I've made some terrible mistakes, and those mistakes have hurt a lot of people, including your mother, and you, and—" he looked at me helplessly, "and me," I finished for him. "My name is Sarah. I'm your father's wife." Both girls looked at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. "What?" Melissa said. "But Mom is Dad's wife," Emma said, confused. "Yes," I said gently. "Your mom is married to your dad, and so am I." The confusion on their faces deepened. They looked at David. "Dad, what is she talking about?" David's face was wet with tears. I'm married to both of them. I have been for 17 years, since before you were born. The room went completely silent. The girls stared at him, then at Rebecca, then at me, then back at him. That's not possible, Melissa said slowly. You can't be married to two people. You're not supposed to be, Rebecca said, her voice tight. But your father did it anyway. I don't understand, Emma said, her voice small. Is this a joke? It's not a joke, sweetheart, I said. I wish it were, but it's true. Your father has been living two separate lives, one with your mother and you, and one with me. Melissa stood up abruptly. No, no way. Dad wouldn't do that. You're lying. I'm not lying, Melissa, David said, his voice breaking. I wish I were, but it's true. I've been lying to all of you for years. When you're away for work, you're not always working. Sometimes you're with Sarah, in Boston, in the house you share with her. The house you bought with her, I added quietly. The life you built with her while building a life here. Emma started crying, not loud, dramatic sobs, just quiet tears streaming down her face. But you're our dad. You come to my soccer games. You help me with homework. You're here. I am here, David said desperately. I love you girls more than anything. Then how could you do this? Melissa shouted. How could you lie to us for our entire lives? I didn't mean for it to happen. Yes, you did. Rebecca cut him off. You meant for it to happen every single day you kept the secret. Every single day you got up and maintained this lie. You chose this. David had no answer for that. Does this mean you have another family? Emma asked, wiping her tears. Do you have other kids we don't know about? No, I said. David and I don't have children. It was just the two of us. Did you know about us? Melissa asked me, her voice hard. No, I said honestly. I found out yesterday. Your mom came to my house and told me. I had no idea you existed. Why are you here then? Melissa challenged. Why are you telling us this? Because you deserve the truth. Because your father wasn't going to tell you unless we made him. And because what he did affects all of us. Not just your mom, not just me, but you too. I wanted to protect you, David said weakly. Protect us? Melissa laughed harshly. You weren't protecting us. You were protecting yourself. She was smart, this girl. She saw through him immediately. What happens now? Emma asked. Are you and Mom getting divorced? Rebecca nodded. Yes, and your father's marriage to Sarah will end too. Which marriage is real? Melissa asked. If he married both of you, which one counts? His marriage to me came first. We got married in 2003. He married your mother in 2007. So Mom's marriage isn't real? Emma looked stricken. It's complicated, Rebecca said. Both marriages are real in some ways and not real in others. The lawyers will figure it out. Is Dad going to jail? Melissa asked bluntly. David's head snapped up. What? Bigamy is illegal, Melissa said. She was looking at him with something that looked like disgust. I learned about it in social studies. If you married two people, that's a crime. We haven't decided whether to press charges, Rebecca said carefully. You should, Melissa said coldly. He deserves it. Melissa, David reached for her. She jerked away. Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again. The pain on David's face was visible, but I couldn't feel sorry for him. He'd done this to himself. How much of our lives was a lie? Was any of it real? Your father's love for you is real, Rebecca said firmly. Whatever else he did, whatever else he lied about, he loves you both. I believe that. But everything else was fake, Melissa said. Every time he said he had to travel for work, every excuse for missing things, every story about where he was and what he was doing. All lies. Yes, David admitted. All lies. What about Grandma and Grandpa? Emma asked suddenly. Did they know? Dad's parents died before you were born, Rebecca said. The people you thought were your grandparents were actors he hired. Emma's face crumbled. What?
The birthday cards you got from them, the presents at Christmas, the phone calls on holidays, those were all fake. I'm sorry." Melissa was pacing now, her hands clenched into fists. "I can't believe this. I can't believe any of this. Who are you? Who even are you?" She was looking at David, but he had no answer. "Do our friends know? Does anyone else know?" "Not yet," Rebecca said. "But they will. This isn't something we can keep secret." "Everyone's going to find out," Melissa said, her voice rising with panic. "Everyone at school, all our friends. Everyone's going to know our dad is a fraud, a liar, a criminal." "I'm sorry," David said, sobbing now. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix this," Melissa screamed. "Sorry doesn't change what you did. Sorry doesn't make our family not broken." She ran out of the room. We heard her footsteps pounding up the stairs. A door slammed. Emma sat on the couch, still crying quietly. She looked so small, so young, so hurt. "Emma," Rebecca said gently, "do you want to go to your room? You don't have to stay down here." Emma shook her head. "I want to ask her something." She looked at me. "Did he tell you he loved you?" "Yes." "Did you believe him?" "Yes." "Did he tell you Mom was dead or something, to explain why he wasn't with her?"
No, I said. He told me his parents lived far away and couldn't visit, but he never mentioned your mother, or you. I thought he'd never been married before me. So you didn't know he was lying either? Emma said. No, I didn't know. Then I guess you're a victim too, Emma said quietly. Not just us. The kindness in her words, even in the middle of all this pain, made my throat tight. Thank you for saying that. She nodded and stood up. I'm going to go check on Melissa. She walked out of the room, leaving just the three of us. David, Rebecca, and me. 3 people connected by one man's lies. Well, Rebecca said into the silence, that went about as badly as expected. They hate me, David said. Yes, Rebecca agreed. They do, and they should. They'll forgive me eventually, right? They're my daughters. Maybe they will, I said. Or maybe they won't. That's their choice to make. Just like it was your choice to lie to them for their entire lives. David put his head in his hands. Rebecca looked at me. Thank you for being here, for helping tell them. They deserve the truth, I said, even though it hurt. What now? She asked. Now we deal with the aftermath, I said. We file for divorce, we figure out the legal mess, we tell everyone what happened, we rebuild. In that order? Rebecca asked with a bitter smile. In whatever order works, I said, as long as we make sure he faces the consequences. We stood there for a moment, 2 women united by a betrayal, figuring out how to move forward. From upstairs, we could hear the sound of crying. 2 girls whose world had just shattered. 2 girls who would never see their father the same way again. David had destroyed so many lives with his lies, but Rebecca and I were going to make sure he couldn't destroy anything else. I left Rebecca's house an hour later. David stayed behind, trying unsuccessfully to talk to his daughters through their locked bedroom doors. They wouldn't come out, wouldn't speak to him. I didn't blame them. I drove back to my sister's house in a daze. My sister Emily had agreed to let me stay with her after I'd called her that morning and told her everything. She'd been shocked, furious on my behalf, and immediately insisted I pack a bag and come over. When I arrived, she met me at the door with a glass of wine and a hug. How did it go? Exactly as terribly as you'd expect, I said, taking the wine gratefully. Those poor girls, they didn't deserve any of this. Neither did you, Emily reminded me, leading me inside to her couch. Tell me everything. I told her about the meeting, about Melissa's anger and Emma's tears, about David's pathetic attempts to explain, about how surreal it was to sit in that house and see the life David had built without me. I still can't believe it, Emily said when I finished. 20 years, Sarah. 20 years, and you never suspected. Never, I admitted. He was so good at it, so careful. Every detail perfectly planned.
What about his work? Didn't they notice something weird? That's my next stop, I said. Tomorrow I'm calling his employer. They need to know what he's been doing. What do you think will happen? Best case, he gets fired, loses his career, has to figure out how to support 2 households while unemployed. I took a sip of wine. Worst case, same thing, but he somehow talks his way out of it. You don't think he can, do you? I don't know, honestly. I didn't think he could maintain 2 marriages for 17 years either, so clearly I'm not a good judge of what David is capable of. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Girls still won't come out. David finally left. He's probably heading back to you. I texted back. I'm not there. Staying with my sister. He's on his own. Rebecca replied, Good. He deserves to be alone. I wrote back, Did you call your lawyer? Rebecca answered, Yes. Meeting tomorrow at 9. You? I responded, Same. 10:30. Rebecca texted, We should meet after. Compare notes. I agreed. Coffee at noon? Rebecca confirmed. I'll text you the place. I put my phone down and looked at Emily. Rebecca and I are meeting tomorrow after we meet with our lawyers. We need to coordinate our strategy. It's so weird that you two are like allies now. You're literally married to the same man. Were married, I corrected. Past tense. That's over. Still, it must be strange. It is, I admitted. But also, she's the only person who really understands what I'm going through. She's living the same nightmare. Do you like her? I thought about that. I think I do. In a different world, under different circumstances, we might have been friends. Maybe you still can be, Emily suggested, after all this is over. Maybe, but I wasn't sure. How do you stay friends with someone who's a constant reminder of the worst thing that ever happened to you? My phone rang. I looked at the screen. David. Don't answer it, Emily said. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, another call, then another, then a text. Sarah, please, we need to talk. I blocked his number. Good, Emily said approvingly. He doesn't get to have access to you anymore. She was right. David had lost the right to call me, to text me, to have any place in my life the moment he'd decided to marry someone else while married to me. That night, lying in Emily's guest room, I couldn't sleep again. My mind kept replaying the last 20 years, looking for signs I'd missed, red flags I'd ignored, clues that should have told me something was wrong. The business trips, the separate phone for work, the way he was never on social media, his reluctance to take pictures together in public, the fact that I'd never met his parents, his limited number of friends, the way he kept his Boston life and his Providence life completely separate. All of it made sense now. All of it was part of the lie. But in the moment, none of it had seemed suspicious. He had reasonable explanations for everything, and I trusted him. That was the worst part. Not that he'd lied, but that I'd been so easy to fool. The next morning, I woke up exhausted. I'd maybe slept 2 hours total, but I forced myself to get up, get dressed, and prepare for the day ahead. First stop, my lawyer's office. His name was Marcus Chen, and he specialized in complex divorce cases. When I'd explained the situation on the phone, he'd been intrigued. He said, I've handled a lot of divorces, but never a bigamy case. This is going to be complicated. Now, sitting across from him in his office, I realized just how complicated. The first issue is determining which marriage is legally valid. You were married first in Massachusetts, but David's marriage to Rebecca in Rhode Island was also legal at the time because the systems didn't catch that he was already married. So both marriages are legal? Yes and no. Your marriage is the primary one, since it came first, but Rebecca's marriage isn't automatically invalid just because he was already married. The courts will have to sort it out. What does that mean for the divorce? It means you'll both file for divorce, but the asset division is going to be messy. David has been splitting his income and resources between 2 households for years. We'll need to do a full accounting of all his finances. What about his pension, his retirement accounts? Those will be divided as well, but between two spouses, you'll get a portion. That doesn't seem fair. I was married to him for 20 years. She was only married to him 17. Fair and legal aren't always the same thing, Marcus said sympathetically. But we'll fight for your interests, I promise. We spent the next hour going over details: financial records, property ownership, bank accounts, insurance policies. It was overwhelming.
By the time I left Marcus's office, my head was spinning. I checked my phone. A text from Rebecca. Just finished with my lawyer. This is a nightmare. Meet you at Cafe Nero in 10? I replied, see you there. The coffee shop was quiet mid-morning. Rebecca was already there when I arrived, looking as exhausted as I felt. We ordered our coffees and sat at a corner table. So, she said, how bad is it? Very bad, I said. Yours? Same. My lawyer said it could take years to untangle everything. Years, I repeated numbly. I have to deal with this for years? We both do, Rebecca said, but at least we're not alone in it. We sat in silence for a moment, sipping our coffee. I told his employer yesterday, Rebecca said finally. Called them right after we left my house. What did they say? They were shocked, asked me to send documentation. I emailed them copies of both marriage certificates. What do you think will happen? I think he'll be fired, Rebecca said. He's been lying on official documents, claiming different addresses for his W-2s, probably misusing company resources. They're not going to want that liability. Good, I said. He should lose his job. My lawyer also mentioned we could press criminal charges, Rebecca said carefully, for the bigamy. I'd been thinking about that. Do you want to? Part of me does, she admitted. Part of me wants him to face real consequences. But the other part thinks about Melissa and Emma, I finished. Yes. If he goes to jail, who's going to support them? I make decent money as a nurse, but not enough to cover everything on my own. I've been thinking about that too, I said. As much as I hate him, I don't want his daughters to suffer more than they already have. So we don't press charges? Not right now, I said, but we keep it as an option. If he doesn't cooperate with the divorce, if he tries to hide assets or fight us on anything, then we go to the police. Rebecca nodded slowly. That sounds fair. There's something else, I said. I think we should go public with this. Tell our story. What do you mean? I mean social media, news outlets, anywhere that will listen. I want people to know what he did. I want there to be a permanent record of who David Mitchell really is. Rebecca looked thoughtful. Won't that hurt Melissa and Emma? They're already hurt, I said gently, and everyone's going to find out anyway. At least if we control the narrative, we can tell the truth. We can make sure people understand that we didn't know, that we were victims too. You're right, Rebecca said, and maybe it'll stop him from doing this to someone else. Exactly. We spent the next hour planning. We decided to write a joint statement explaining what happened. We'd post it on social media, share it with local news outlets, make sure everyone in David's professional and personal circles knew the truth. It felt good to be taking action, to be fighting back instead of just falling apart. As we were leaving the cafe, Rebecca stopped me. Sarah, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think you'll ever be able to trust anyone again after this? I thought about it. I don't know. Right now, the idea of trusting another person feels impossible, but maybe someday. Maybe after enough time passes, I'll be able to believe that not everyone is like David. I hope so, Rebecca said, for both of us. We hugged goodbye and went our separate ways, but for the first time since this nightmare started, I didn't feel completely alone. Rebecca and I were in this together, and together we were going to make sure David Mitchell never hurt anyone else again. Rebecca and I spent the next week preparing our statement. We wanted it to be clear, factual, and impossible to dispute. We documented everything: dates, places, receipts, photos, marriage certificates, text messages. We built an airtight case against David. We also consulted with both our lawyers to make sure we weren't opening ourselves up to legal trouble. They approved the statement with some minor edits.
On a Friday evening, exactly 1 week after Rebecca had shown up on my doorstep, we posted it simultaneously to our social media accounts. The statement read, "My name is Sarah Mitchell. I was married to David Mitchell for 20 years. My name is Rebecca Chen. I was married to David Mitchell for 17 years. Yes, we were both married to the same man at the same time. No, neither of us knew about the other until 1 week ago. David Mitchell is a bigamist. For nearly 20 decades, he maintained two complete separate lives, two homes, two wives, two identities. He lied to both of us every single day. We are sharing our story publicly for several reasons. First, we want the truth to be known. David's friends, family, colleagues, and acquaintances deserve to know who he really is. Second, we want to prevent him from doing this to anyone else. A man capable of this level of deception is capable of anything. Third, we want other victims of similar situations to know they're not alone. If you've been betrayed, if you've discovered your partner was living a double life, you are not crazy. You are not stupid. You are a victim of calculated manipulation. We are both filing for divorce. We are both working with lawyers to untangle the financial and legal mess David created, and we are both moving forward with our lives. If you know David Mitchell, if you've worked with him, been friends with him, trusted him, know that everything you thought you knew about him was a carefully constructed lie. We will not be taking questions at this time, but we wanted the truth to be public record. Sincerely, Sarah Mitchell and Rebecca Chen." We attached copies of both marriage certificates, wedding photos, and screenshots of David's various social media accounts, where he'd carefully maintained separate personas for each life. Then we hit post. Within an hour, the responses started flooding in. Comments ranged from shock to support to disbelief. Some people thought it was a hoax. Others shared similar stories of betrayal. Some were angry on our behalf. A few blamed us for not knowing. But most people were supportive. And that mattered. My phone started ringing. Friends I hadn't talked to in years, family members, former colleagues. Everyone wanted to know if it was true, if I was okay, if there was anything they could do. I answered some calls and let others go to voicemail. Emily sat with me, helping me field the responses, reminding me to take breaks when it got overwhelming. Rebecca texted me, "My phone is exploding. Is yours?" I replied, "Yes, this is insane." Rebecca wrote, "The local news just called me. They want to do an interview." I asked, "What did they say?" Rebecca answered, "I said I'd think about it." "What do you think?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted to hide, wanted to disappear and never face the public scrutiny. But the other part, the angry, determined part, wanted to shout the truth from every platform available. I texted, "Let's do it. Together." Rebecca asked, "You're sure?" I confirmed, "I'm sure. They can't hurt us anymore, and maybe our story will help someone else." Rebecca agreed. "Okay, I'll set it up." 2 days later, Rebecca and I sat side by side in a television studio, facing a news reporter named Jennifer Kim. She'd been kind during the pre-interview, assuring us she'd handle the story with sensitivity. "Sarah, Rebecca, thank you for being here. I know this must be incredibly difficult. Can you start by telling us how you discovered what David had been doing?" Rebecca went first, explaining how she'd found my name on tax documents. I followed, describing the moment she showed up on my doorstep. We took turns filling in the details, painting a picture of the elaborate deception. "Did either of you suspect something was wrong before this?" Jennifer asked. "No," I said firmly. David was meticulous. Every lie had a backup lie. Every detail was planned. There were no obvious red flags. "What was your first thought when you realized the truth?" Jennifer asked Rebecca. "Disbelief. Complete disbelief. My brain couldn't process it. This was my husband, the father of my children. How could he do this? And when you met each other, when you both realized you'd been married to the same man, it was surreal, like meeting someone from an alternate dimension. We had this instant connection because we were living the same nightmare, but we were also, I don't know how to explain it. We were mirrors of each other, reflections of David's lie."
Some people might wonder why you decided to go public with this story. Jennifer said carefully,
Can you explain that decision? Because secrets protect abusers, Rebecca said. David maintained this lie for so long because everything was secret, separate, compartmentalized. By making it public, we're taking away his power. And we're warning others, I added. David is still out there, still capable of manipulation. People deserve to know who they're dealing with. Have you heard from David since you went public? He's tried to contact both of us, I said, through phone calls, emails, showing up at our homes, but we're not responding. We've said everything we need to say. Now we're letting the lawyers handle it. What about you, Rebecca? How are your daughters handling this? Rebecca's composure cracked slightly. They're devastated, angry, confused. They're seeing a therapist. We're taking it day by day. And you, Sarah? You and David don't have children, but this has still upended your entire life. It has, I agreed. I'm having to re-examine everything. Every memory, every conversation, every moment of our marriage, because all of it was tainted by his lies. What do you want viewers to understand about your situation? That this wasn't our fault, Rebecca said firmly. We didn't choose this. We didn't ignore red flags. We were victims of a very skilled manipulator. And that recovery is possible, I added. We're not okay right now. We won't be okay for a long time, but we will survive this. We will rebuild, and we will not let David's actions define the rest of our lives. Jennifer nodded. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Rebecca and I looked at each other. We'd discussed this beforehand. Yes, I said, turning back to the camera. If you're watching this, David, know that we're not backing down. We're not going to quietly disappear. We're going to make sure everyone knows what you did. We're going to make sure you face consequences. And we're going to make sure you can never do this to anyone else. You spent 20 years lying. Now we're spending however long it takes telling the truth. The interview aired that evening. Within hours, it had gone viral. News outlets across the country picked it up. Our story was on social media, in newspapers, on podcasts. Everyone was talking about the man who had 2 wives for 17 years. David's employer released a statement saying they'd terminated his employment effective immediately. His professional reputation was destroyed. Friends and colleagues started coming forward with their own stories of David's lies. Small things they'd noticed but dismissed. Inconsistencies they'd thought were innocent mistakes. One woman, a coworker, even came forward to say David had asked her out for drinks multiple times, despite knowing he was married. She hadn't known which wife he was referring to. The full scope of his deception was becoming clear. It wasn't just 2 wives. It was an entire life built on manipulation and lies. My phone rang. An unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Sarah, this is Detective Maria Santos with the Rhode Island State Police. I'm calling about your situation with David Mitchell. I'm calling. Yes? We've been following the news coverage. We'd like to speak with you and Rebecca Chen about potentially pressing criminal charges against Mr. Mitchell for bigamy and fraud. I sat down slowly. We've been discussing that possibility. I understand this is a difficult decision, but I want you to know that we take these cases very seriously. What Mr. Mitchell did wasn't just morally wrong, it was illegal. And if you're willing to cooperate, we'd like to pursue charges. Can I talk to Rebecca first? We want to make this decision together. Of course. Take your time. Here's my direct number. Call me when you're ready. After we hung up, I immediately called Rebecca. The police just called me. They want to press charges. There was a long pause. What do you think we should do? I think we should do it. I know we were worried about the girls, about the financial impact, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that letting him get away with this sends the wrong message, not just to him, but to other people who might do the same thing. You're right, Rebecca said quietly. My daughters are strong. We'll figure out the money, but David needs to face real consequences. So we do it? We do it. 2 days later, Rebecca and I sat in Detective Santos's office, giving our full statements. We provided all the documentation, all the evidence, everything we had. A week after that, David Mitchell was arrested and charged with bigamy, fraud, and falsifying official documents. He was released on bail, but the damage was done. His arrest was public record. His mugshot was in the news. Everyone knew, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like justice might actually be possible. 3 months passed. 3 months of lawyers and court dates and police interviews, 3 months of therapy and sleepless nights and learning how to be a single person again, after 20 years of thinking I was part of a couple. The divorce proceedings were moving forward, though slowly. David's assets were being inventoried and divided. The house in Boston, my house, would have to be sold. The proceeds split between me and Rebecca according to a formula the lawyers were still arguing about. David had moved into a small apartment. He couldn't afford 2 houses anymore, not without his job, not with the legal bills mounting. His daughters visited him sometimes, though Melissa had made it clear she wanted nothing to do with him. Emma was softer, more forgiving, but still hurt and angry. I didn't see him. We communicated only through lawyers now. That's how I wanted it. Rebecca and I had become friends, real friends. We met for coffee every week, comparing notes on our legal cases, supporting each other through the hard days. It was strange, bonding with someone over shared trauma, but it worked for us. "I've been thinking about dating again," Rebecca said one afternoon over coffee. I nearly spit out my drink. "Already?" I know. It seems too soon. But I'm lonely and I miss having a partner. Not David. I don't miss him at all. But I miss having someone to share things with. I can't even imagine dating right now. The idea of trusting someone else with my heart, terrifying. "I'm terrified too," Rebecca said, "but I also don't want to let David's actions ruin the rest of my life. I'm 41 years old. I want to find real love before it's too late." "It's never too late," I said, "but take your time. Don't rush into anything." "What about you, Sarah? Any thoughts about the future?" I stirred my coffee, thinking. I'm focusing on me right now. I started painting again, something I used to love but stopped doing years ago. I'm traveling. I booked a trip to Italy next month. "By yourself?" "With Emily, my sister. She's been my rock through all of this." "That sounds amazing," Rebecca said wistfully. "Maybe I should travel too. Get away from everything for a while." "You should," I encouraged. "Take the girls. Make new memories that have nothing to do with David." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "Do you ever think about what our lives would have been like if we'd never found out?" "All the time," I admitted. I'd still be living in that house thinking I was happily married, thinking David was at work when he was actually with you, never knowing about Melissa and Emma. Would you want that? To still not know? I thought about it carefully. No, as much as this hurts, as much as I hate what he did, I'm glad I know the truth. I'd rather live in painful reality than comfortable lies. Me too, Rebecca agreed. Even though some days I wish I could go back to not knowing, it would be easier. Easier isn't always better.
My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, my lawyer. Update. David accepted the settlement terms. Divorce should be finalized in 60 days. I showed the text to Rebecca. 60 days, she said. In 60 days, you'll officially not be married to him anymore. How long for you? About the same, maybe 70 days. The judge has to sort out which marriage has legal precedence for certain property issues. And then we're free, I said. Free, Rebecca repeated. It's strange to think about. I've been married, or thought I was married, since I was 25. I don't remember what it's like to be single. Neither do I said. I guess we'll figure it out together. Rebecca smiled. I'm glad we have each other. I don't think I could have survived this alone. Me neither. The criminal case against David was still pending. His lawyer was trying to negotiate a plea deal, probation instead of jail time, in exchange for a guilty plea. Rebecca and I had mixed feelings about it. Part of me wants him to go to jail, Rebecca admitted, wants him to face real punishment. But another part of me thinks probation is enough. He's lost everything already. His job, his reputation, his family. His freedom is the only thing he has left. The prosecutor said if he doesn't take the plea, we'd have to testify at trial, relive everything in front of a courtroom full of people. I know, that's another reason I'm okay with the plea deal. I just want this to be over. So do I. A few weeks later, David accepted the plea deal. He pled guilty to bigamy and fraud. He was sentenced to 2 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and ordered to pay restitution to both Rebecca and me for emotional damages. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough, but it was something. The day the divorce was finalized, I went to the courthouse alone. I didn't want David there, and the judge had agreed he could appear remotely via video. I sat in that courtroom and watched the judge sign the papers that officially ended my 20-year marriage. The marriage between Sarah Parker and David Mitchell is hereby dissolved, the judge said. Sarah Parker, my maiden name. I'd reclaimed it as part of the divorce. I wasn't Sarah Mitchell anymore. That woman was gone. She died the day Rebecca showed up on my doorstep. I walked out of that courthouse feeling lighter than I had in months. It was over. Finally, truly over. I called Rebecca from the parking lot. It's done. I'm officially divorced. Congratulations, she said, and she meant it. How do you feel? Free, I said. Relieved. Sad. All of it at once. That's exactly how I felt when mine was finalized last week, Rebecca said. Like closing a chapter on the worst book you've ever read. Perfect analogy. Want to celebrate? We could get dinner, toast to our new lives. I'd like that, I said. That night, Rebecca and I met at a nice restaurant. We ordered good wine and better food. We toasted to freedom, to honesty, to new beginnings. To surviving, Rebecca said, raising her glass. To more than surviving, I corrected. To thriving. We clinked glasses. Have you thought about what you want to do now? Career-wise, I mean. You said you left your marketing job. I did. I couldn't focus on work while all this was happening. But I've been thinking about starting my own consulting business, working for myself, having control over my own life for once. That sounds amazing, Rebecca said. I've been thinking about going back to school, maybe becoming a nurse practitioner. I have time now that I'm not waiting around for David to come home. Look at us, planning futures that are actually ours. It feels good, Rebecca admitted. Scary, but good. We spent the rest of dinner talking about our plans, our dreams, the lives we wanted to build. For the first time in months, I felt hopeful. As we were leaving the restaurant, Rebecca stopped me. Sarah, thank you. For what? For not hating me, for not blaming me, for becoming my friend through all of this. I could say the same to you. We could have been enemies. We could have blamed each other, but we chose to support each other instead. Best decision I ever made. We hugged goodbye and went our separate ways. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment, smaller than the house David and I had shared, but it was mine and mine alone, when my phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? Is this Sarah Parker? Yes. Who's this? My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm a literary agent. I saw your story on the news, and I was wondering if you'd ever considered writing a book about your experience. A book? I hadn't thought about, but as soon as she said it, something clicked into place. Actually, I said slowly, that might be exactly what I need to do. Over the next year, I wrote our story. Rebecca contributed her perspective. We detailed every lie, every discovery, every painful moment of the aftermath. But we also wrote about survival, about friendship, about finding strength we didn't know we had. The book was published 18 months after Rebecca first knocked on my doorstep. It became a bestseller. We did interviews, speaking engagements, podcasts. We heard from hundreds of people who'd experienced similar betrayals.
Our story helped people. It helped us too. I still have hard days. Days when I wonder if I'll ever fully trust anyone again. Days when I'm angry about the 20 years I lost. Days when I see couples my age who've been together since college and I feel jealous of their simple, honest love. But I also have good days. Days when I'm proud of how far I've come. Days when I'm excited about my future. Days when I look in the mirror and see someone strong, someone resilient, someone who survived the unthinkable. Rebecca is dating someone now, a kind man who knows her whole story and loves her anyway. She's happy, really, genuinely happy. Seeing her find love again gives me hope that maybe I can too, someday. Melissa and Emma are doing better, still in therapy, still working through their feelings about their father, but they're resilient, like their mother. They'll be okay. David is, I don't know, actually. I don't follow his life anymore. I heard he moved to another state, started over somewhere no one knows his story. Good. He can start over. But he'll never escape what he did. As for me, I'm building a life that's entirely mine. No lies, no secrets, no hidden families or double lives. Just me, figuring out who I am and who I want to be. It's not the life I planned. It's not the happily ever after I thought I was living. But it's real. It's honest. It's mine. And that's worth more than any fairy tale.
2 years after Rebecca knocked on my door and changed my life forever, I'm sitting in a coffee shop, not the one where I met David, I'll never go back there, working on my laptop. My consulting business is thriving, I have clients I enjoy working with, projects that challenge me, and most importantly, control over my own life and schedule. The bell above the door chimes, and I look up automatically. It's just a habit now, this constant awareness of my surroundings. The therapist says it's a trauma response, being hypervigilant, always watching for danger. I'm working on it. A young woman walks in with her boyfriend. They're laughing about something, completely wrapped up in each other. They look happy, in love, like David and I must have looked to other people for 20 years. I don't feel bitter watching them. That's progress. A year ago, seeing happy couples made me angry. Now I just hope their love is real. I hope neither of them is lying. I hope they're building something genuine. My phone buzzes. A text from Rebecca. Guess what? Mark proposed. Mark is the man she's been dating for the past year, the kind, honest one who knew her whole story from day one and fell in love with her anyway. I text back immediately. OMG, congratulations. When's the wedding? Rebecca replies, we're thinking next summer, small ceremony. And, Sarah, I want you to be my maid of honor. I stare at the text, tears welling up. 2 years ago, we were strangers, connected only by the man who'd betrayed us both. Now she's asking me to stand up with her on one of the most important days of her life. I write back, I would be honored, literally honored. Rebecca responds, can you meet for coffee this week? I want to tell you everything. I confirm, of course, Tuesday? Rebecca agrees, perfect. I put my phone down, smiling. Rebecca is getting married. She's found real love, honest love, the kind she deserves. It gives me hope that happy endings are possible, even after the worst beginnings. People ask me sometimes if I regret those 20 years with David, if I wish I'd never met him, never married him, never invested so much of my life in a lie. The answer is complicated. Do I wish he'd been honest? Obviously. Do I wish I'd spent those years with someone who truly loved me? Of course. Do I wish I could get that time back? Every single day. But I can't pretend those years didn't shape who I am now. They taught me things about myself I never would have learned otherwise, about my strength, my resilience, my ability to survive the unsurvivable. They taught me that trust isn't something you should give blindly, that love requires honesty, transparency, and consistent action, not just words, that people are capable of extraordinary deception, but also extraordinary kindness. They taught me that life doesn't always go according to plan, that sometimes the life you're living is just an illusion. And when that illusion shatters, you have a choice. You can let it destroy you, or you can pick up the pieces and build something new. I chose to build something new.
My sister Emily asks me sometimes if I'm ready to date again. You've been single for 2 years. Don't you want to find someone? The honest answer is I don't know. Part of me wants companionship, partnership, someone to share my life with, but another part of me is comfortable being alone. I've learned to enjoy my own company. I've learned that I don't need someone else to complete me because I was never incomplete to begin with. If I meet someone someday, someone who makes me want to take that risk again, I'll be open to it. But I'm not searching. I'm not desperately trying to fill a void. I'm just living my life, and if love happens, it happens. But this time, I'll be smarter. This time, I'll watch for red flags. I'll ask questions. I'll verify things. I'll trust, but I'll also protect myself. I'll never be that naive again. And I'm not sure if that's sad or wise. Probably both. The book Rebecca and I wrote has continued to resonate with people. We hear from readers regularly, people who've discovered their partners were living double lives, people who've been betrayed in similar ways, people who just need to know they're not alone. We started a support group, online mostly, though we meet in person quarterly. It's a community of survivors, all of us rebuilding our lives after devastating betrayals. We share resources, advice, encouragement. Helping others has been healing for me. It's given purpose to my pain. Every person I help, every story I hear, every connection I make, it all reminds me that what happened to me wasn't my fault, and that survival is possible. I spoke at a conference last month about betrayal trauma and recovery. Standing on that stage, sharing my story with hundreds of people, I felt powerful. Not in an arrogant way, but in a way that said, I survived something terrible, and now I'm using that experience to help others. That's the silver lining, I suppose, the gift hidden in the wreckage. I can help people because I understand. I can offer hope because I've found it myself. Do I still have hard days? Absolutely. Days when I'm angry about what David took from me. Days when I mourn the life I thought I had. Days when I wonder who I would have been if I'd never met him. But the hard days are fewer now, and they're balanced by good days. Days when I'm grateful for my freedom. Days when I'm proud of my strength. Days when I look at my life and think, I built this. Me. All by myself. I've learned that healing isn't linear. It's not a straight path from broken to whole. It's messy and complicated. Some days you take 3 steps forward, some days you take 2 steps back. But as long as you keep moving, keep trying, keep choosing yourself, you're heading in the right direction. I've also learned that forgiveness is complicated. People always ask me if I've forgiven David. The answer is, I'm working on it. Not for him, he doesn't deserve my forgiveness, but for me, because holding on to anger is exhausting, and I'm tired of giving him any more of my energy. Forgiveness doesn't mean what he did was okay. It doesn't mean I trust him or want him in my life. It just means I'm choosing to release the grip his actions have on my heart. I'm choosing to let go of the pain so I can make room for something better. Last week, I ran into someone who knew David and I when we were married. She didn't know about the divorce, didn't know about the double life. She just remembered us as that adorable couple who seemed so perfect together. What happened? She asked sympathetically when I told her we'd divorced. I could have told her everything. Could have explained about Rebecca and the girls and the lies. But I didn't. I just smiled and said, we grew apart. It happens. Because here's what I've learned. I don't owe anyone my story. I don't owe anyone explanations or details or evidence. My trauma is mine. I get to decide when to share it and when to keep it private. That encounter reminded me how much I've grown. 2 years ago, I would have launched into the whole story, desperate to make sure everyone knew it wasn't my fault, that I'd been deceived. Now I'm secure enough in myself that I don't need external validation. I know the truth. That's enough. As I pack up my laptop and get ready to leave the coffee shop, I think about what advice I'd give to someone starting this journey. Someone who just discovered their partner has been lying, someone whose world just shattered. I'd tell them, you will survive this. It doesn't feel like it right now. It feels like the pain will swallow you whole, but it won't. You're stronger than you know. I'd tell them it's okay to be angry, it's okay to grieve, it's okay to feel however you feel. There's no right way to process betrayal. I'd tell them, find your people, the ones who will sit with you in the darkness and not try to fix it, the ones who will listen without judgment, the ones who will remind you of your worth when you forget. I tell them, take your time. Healing can't be rushed. Don't let anyone tell you you should be over it by now or that you should forgive before you're ready. Your timeline is your own. I tell them, you get to decide what comes next. You get to rebuild your life however you want. This is your second chance. Don't waste it trying to recreate what you lost. Create something new, something better, something entirely yours. And finally, I'd tell them what someone told me in those early dark days. You are not what happened to you. You are not defined by someone else's choices. You are defined by how you choose to move forward. I walk out of the coffee shop into the sunshine. It's a beautiful day, the kind of day that makes you glad to be alive. I have plans tonight, dinner with friends. I have plans this weekend, a hiking trip with Emily. I have plans next month, a business conference where I'm giving a keynote speech. I have plans. I have a future. I have a life that's worth living. 20 years with David felt like forever, but they're over now. And the rest of my life, however many years that turns out to be, is just beginning. I'm Sarah Parker. I'm a survivor. I'm a friend, a sister, a business owner, an author, a speaker. I'm someone who faced the worst betrayal imaginable and came out the other side. I'm not the woman I was 2 years ago. That woman died when the truth came out. I'm someone new now. Someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who knows exactly what she's worth and won't settle for anything less. And you know what? I like this version of me better. The old Sarah trusted blindly. This Sarah trusts wisely. The old Sarah needed someone to complete her. This Sarah is complete all on her own. The old Sarah lived in an illusion. This Sarah lives in truth. It's not the life I planned, but it's a life I'm proud of. And that's the real revenge, isn't it? Not destroying the person who hurt you, not making them suffer the way they made you suffer. The real revenge is building a life so good, so full, so genuine that they become irrelevant, that their actions, their choices, their presence or absence from your life stops mattering.
The real revenge is being happy without them. And I am, finally, truly, genuinely happy. Not because of what David did, not in spite of what David did, but completely independent of what David did. My happiness is mine. My life is mine. My future is mine. And no one, not David, not anyone, can ever take that away from me again.